The Case of the Hidden Relic. In his first case, a young detective named Max embarks on his first major investigation after a valuable painting, the Blue Butterfly, is stolen from a local art gallery. As Max digs deeper, he uncovers that the painting hides a secret, an ancient map leading to a long-lost treasure. The story follows Max as he deciphers clues, faces dangerous criminals, and ultimately sets a trap to catch the thief. In the end, Max retrieves not just the painting but also uncovers a much larger mystery connected to a hidden treasure, setting the stage for future adventures. Chapter 1: A New Lead ****. Max sat in his dimly lit office, staring at the ancient key and the cryptic letter laid out before him. The excitement of the chase still thrummed in his veins, but he knew this was far from over. The recent case of the stolen painting had led him to something far more significant, the hidden treasure of immense historical value. But Max also knew he couldn't solve this mystery alone. He picked up the phone and dialed a number he hadn't called in years. "Elena? It's Maximum. I've got something that might interest you." Chapter 2: An Old Friend Returns. Dr. Elena Martinez was a renowned historian, specializing in ancient languages and artifacts. With a PhD in archaeology from Oxford, she had spent years traveling the world, uncovering secrets buried for centuries. Her expertise was unmatched, and her fiery passion for history made her a formidable ally. Elena was in her mid-30s, with sharp features softened by her warm, olive complexion. Her dark, wavy hair was often tied back in a loose bun, and her keen brown eyes missed nothing. She was dressed in her usual attire, a casual, yet professional look of a white blouse, jeans, and her signature brown leather jacket, worn from years of fieldwork. She had once worked closely with Max on a case involving stolen artifacts, and their collaboration had been both intense and successful. However, their paths had diverged after that, with Elena returning to academia and Max diving deeper into detective work. When she walked into Max's office, her eyes immediately fell on the letter and key. "So, what have you got this time?" she asked, a hint of a smile playing on her lips. Max handed her the letter. This was hidden in the back of the stolen painting. "I've got a feeling it leads to something big, something historic." Elena's eyes widened as she scanned the letter. This is written in a code that dates back to the 16th century. It's a treasure map, Maximum. But not just any treasure, this could be connected to a long-lost collection of artifacts that disappeared centuries ago. Max leaned back in his chair. "Can you decode it?" "With some time, yes. But we need to be careful. If the thief was after this map, we're not the only ones looking for this treasure." Chapter 3: The Decoding Begins. Elena spent the next few days poring over the letter, deciphering the old code. Meanwhile, Max began investigating the painting's history and the people who had owned it. He discovered that the painting had once belonged to a wealthy collector who had mysteriously gone bankrupt shortly after acquiring it. As Elena worked through the code, she uncovered a series of locations, each one holding a clue that would lead them to the next. The map pointed to an old mansion on the outskirts of town, a forgotten place that had once been the home of the collector. "This mansion," Elena said, pointing to a spot on the map, "is where we'll find the first clue." Chapter 4: The Mansion's Secret. The mansion was a crumbling relic of a bygone era, surrounded by overgrown gardens and shrouded in an eerie silence. Max and Elena explored the dusty halls, guided by the map. In the library, they found a hidden compartment behind a bookshelf. Inside was an old journal, detailing the collector's obsession with the treasure. The journal hinted at a second clue, hidden in a nearby cathedral. But they weren't alone. As they left the mansion, they noticed they were being followed. Max discreetly noted the license plate of the car trailing them. "We've got company," he whispered to Elena. Chapter 5: The Final Clue. The next morning, Max and Elena arrived at the cathedral. The ancient structure was filled with shadows, and the sound of their footsteps echoed through the empty halls. In a hidden alcove, they found an old stone tablet, inscribed with more of the code. Elena translated it, revealing the location of the final clue, a small, isolated island off the coast. Max and Elena set off for the island. The journey was treacherous, with stormy seas and rugged terrain. But once they arrived, they quickly found the entrance to a hidden cave, marked by the symbols from the map. Max and Elena stood in the dimly lit cave, surrounded by ancient relics and glistening treasures. The treasure they had spent days searching for was finally within their grasp. Elena ran her fingers over the old coins, each one more intricately designed than the last, while Max carefully examined a rusted chest containing old documents. "Can you believe it?" Elena whispered, her voice filled with awe. "This could rewrite history." Max nodded, though his gut told him something was wrong. His instincts, honed from years of detective work, kicked in as he turned toward the entrance. The hairs on the back of his neck stood on end. Just as he opened his mouth to warn Elena, the sound of footsteps echoed through the cave. Max's eyes widened as he saw three shadowy figures approaching swiftly from the entrance. "It's them," Max whispered sharply. "The criminals. They must have followed us." Antonio the Fox Serrano led the way, his sharp eyes gleaming with triumph. Behind him loomed Miguel the Hammer Alvarez, cracking his knuckles menacingly, while Raul the Shadow Morales lingered in the background, silent and calculating. Well, Antonio sneered, stepping forward with a mocking smile. "Looks like you did all the hard work for us, Maximum. Now, step aside and hand over the treasure." Max positioned himself between Elena and the advancing criminals. "You'll have to go through me first." Miguel smirked and started forward, his large frame casting an intimidating shadow. "That's exactly what we planned." Before he could make a move, Max reached into his pocket and tossed a small flashlight toward the cave's roof. As the light hit the uneven surface, it cast a blinding glare into Miguel's eyes, causing him to stumble. Seizing the moment, Max grabbed Elena's arm and pulled her behind a stack of old crates for cover. Shots rang out as Raul fired a warning shot toward them, his aim precise. "You can't hide forever, Max. We'll take what's ours." Max ducked low, formulating a plan in the heat of the moment. The cave was full of narrow passageways and hidden alcoves, giving them a chance to outmaneuver the criminals. He signaled to Elena, and they silently moved through the maze of ancient artifacts, keeping low and out of sight. Meanwhile, Antonio was growing impatient. "Enough games," he growled at Raul. "Get them, or the treasure's gone." Raul stalked forward, but Elena, quick thinking as ever, knocked over a heavy chest of old coins, sending it crashing to the ground. The loud clatter echoed through the cave, distracting Raul and Miguel long enough for Max to double back toward the entrance. "You always were good at running," Miguel taunted as he blocked the way out. Max squared his shoulders, his breath steady. "Who said anything about running?" With a sudden, powerful swing, Max grabbed an old iron rod from a nearby shelf and struck Miguel in the legs, knocking him off balance. Miguel grunted, stumbling backward into a pile of crates. Taking advantage of the moment, Max bolted toward Raul, grappling with the gun. The two struggled in a fierce, tense fight, each trying to gain control of the weapon. Antonio, meanwhile, spotted Elena trying to get to the treasure chest. "Oh no, you don't," he hissed, darting toward her. But Elena, quicker and more agile, kicked a small pile of relics toward his feet, tripping him. Finally, the sound of sirens echoed faintly outside the cave, growing louder by the second. The police were closing in. "We're out of time." Raul snarled, realizing the trap Max had set for them. He shoved Max away and dashed toward the exit, but it was too late. The police burst into the cave just as Raul, Antonio, and Miguel made a desperate attempt to escape. Officers swiftly subdued them, handcuffing the criminals as they struggled. Max wiped the sweat from his brow and stood tall, watching as the criminals were led away. Antonio shot Max a venomous glare, his eyes filled with fury. "This isn't over, detective. You'll regret this." Max simply smirked. "We'll see about that." Chapter 6: Return to the Museum. Max and Elena returned the treasure to the museum, where it was displayed for the public to appreciate. The story of their adventure made headlines, and they were hailed as heroes. But as they stood in the museum, admiring the artifacts, Max couldn't shake the feeling that this was just the beginning. "I've got a feeling we haven't seen the last of those criminals," Max said. Elena nodded. "They'll want revenge. And they know where to find us." Max smiled. "Good. Let them come. We'll be ready."